Yeah. I mean, in part of our check-in, weekly check-in, I wrote, might as well bring this up now. I have not received a response. I would really like to start like a targeted list. And we talked about this in our last meeting, and you suggested to target the people who have been in the business the longest. But in a previous meeting, you had said that there's certain platforms where I can buy the data. Would you mind sharing that again? Like, where can I compile these lists?
You could go out. So there's Data Axle. It used to be Sales Genie, and I still type in salesgenie.com because it's just easier for me. But they were purchased by Data Axle, so now it's called Data Axle Genie. So that is one list of businesses. It's like a giant database of 60 million, 80 million businesses. Then there is, they also bought what used to be Info USA. So there's another site. So you can go to dataaxle.com or dataaxlegenie.com, or just type in, salesgenie.com or infousa.com. And I think all of those will take you to the two different Data Axle sites. They work a little bit differently in that on the Sales Genie side, they actually have like a CRM set up, and you can take notes. It's a monthly subscription, so you subscribe, you pay them a fee monthly, and you can select all your lists and all that, and then you make your calls, and or you can download a certain number every month, and if you're going to send out direct mail. What I can tell you on those sites is they don't have a lot of emails. So there's an extra step. If you're trying to do like an email campaign, then you're going to need to have somebody go research, go out to the website if they have a website address, or Google the business to see if they can fill in, the information. But it'll give you a list of, you can select a list by an SIC code or the NAICS code, and or by a description of the business. You can limit it by geographical area, by zip code, area code. You can also, it has other criteria where you can say, well, I only want businesses that have been in business for more than 10 years or more than 5 years. They have revenue, I only want to see businesses that have revenue over $2 million. So there's a lot of criteria you can put in there to build a list. You just have to understand that with 80 million or 60 million businesses, however many they have in the database, they're definitely not being updated every year. So owners change, revenue numbers may be very inaccurate. I remember going out on an appointment one time to meet with a business owner, and the information I had, it was a manufacturing company. The information I had said they did about 10 million in revenue. And when I met with the owner, and we were talking, and he says, do you have any idea about the size of my company? And I said, no, I only know what the information I've been provided from the source that I got it. And he said that you do about 10 million in revenue. He says, no, we have 5 locations. We do over 100 million in revenue.
So who gathers that data? Like, who inputs that 10 million? Is it self-confessed?
No, not at all. So these companies like Data Axle or what used to be Sales Genie, I don't know how they get their data. It used to be that they would, as far as new businesses and things like that, they would have people at all the counties. They'd have runners go to all the county recorders' offices and pull fictitious name statements. And, and then Secretary of State, they'd pull all the new business listings, or they'd have a runner or somebody go up there. So now, it's easier because you have a lot more information available between just, Google and even some of your AI services like ChatGPT has If if you enter in a business name and say, okay, tell me everything you know about XYZ Corporation, and it'll come up with a bunch of stuff. Now, that being said, doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. And XYZ Corp could be a California Corp, a Delaware Corp, a Texas Corp. There could be 3 or 4 of them out there. So you might have to be more specific if you're trying to use like a Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or one of the AI. But, if you know that they're based out of California, you say, give me everything you know on XYZ Corp located in California. And then, or, if you have other criteria that you're aware of already, you can provide that information to help narrow down the scope.
Okay.
So there's also like Zoom info, and there's, some of the services get really expensive. Like there's a company called Source Scrub. Now, Source Scrub is it's a great service. It's pricey, and it's one of the benefits of M&A Source. They'll give you a 50% discount, but that 50% discount is going to take you from about 15,000 a year down to about 7,500 a year. So it can be very pricey.
Is there one service that you actually can pay per lead rather than do a monthly subscription?
Yeah. And that is Data Axle's other service, the one you get to through what used to be Info USA. And on that side of the house, you're just buying a list. So you create your criteria and all that. And then, if the list comes up with 1,300 people that match your criteria, then that's what you're doing, is you're paying per lead or whatever, just buying the list per name. So you can do it either way with Data Axle. Just whatever you think is going to be most effective for you.
Well, we don't know what it is until we try.
True.
But email just seems to be the best in terms of convenience and expense, right? Because calling, people are so sensitive to scammers. They're not picking up, and there's so many layers. Sophisticated owners, at least, would not pick up the phone themselves, right? They would have some kind of a...
Well, there's gatekeepers. I mean, cold calling used to be the best way and the fastest way to get appointments. And the issue with cold calling now is that you have so many lead generation companies that call them and have nothing to offer them. So they ask them a lot of questions, but they really have nothing to offer them. And then the business owners, it used to be they'd get a call from a business broker, in many cases, when I first started back in 2006, a lot of times when we called a business owner, they had never received a call like that before. They didn't even know what a business broker was. We had to educate them. And it was, one of those things, have you ever thought about selling your business? And then people would respond and would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you just called. My wife is retired, and I was just talking to her last night, and she wants me to sell the business and blah, blah, blah. And, when can you come? And when can we sit down and talk about it? So, that was back in the day, right? Now they get those phone calls 2, 3, 4 times a week. And it's like, don't bother me. I don't have time for this. I've already answered these questions for 22 other people that have given me nothing. So, or offered nothing. So, yeah, so it's tough. Direct mail is the same way. You can send out direct mail, and literally business owners who are not interested. I mean, I've had business owners call me before and just say, hey, I have had this letter sitting in my file or sitting in my drawer for the last 12 years. And I knew when I got it that I needed to save it, but I wasn't thinking about selling back then. So sometimes with direct mail, it's like I said, cold calling was fast appointments. You want appointments next week or even towards the end of this week, I mean, you could set those up by cold calling. Direct mail was always a longer term play. Now what's actually most effective is networking. It's a little bit longer term. It can be both short and long term, but because if you have a good circle of influence and you have a lot of other professional advisors, especially wealth managers, transaction attorneys, CPAs, they work with business owners. They have an idea, they obviously know who their clients are, and if they're thinking about, or if they're getting to an age where they're probably going to want to retire in the near future. And so sometimes if you can establish relationships with them, that can be very helpful.
Thank you.
Sure.
How about email, Tanya? Email, is it good?
Can be, but it just depends. I mean, you don't want to buy a list and then just spam everybody. That'll not do well. If you're going to email somebody that you've not contacted before, you just want to make sure you're giving them something of value. You're not going to send an email out that says, hey, do you want to sell your business? Right?
Yes.
So, if you're going to send somebody an email, you need to have an attachment or have something that is, the top 10 ways to grow your business in 2025, or just something that's going to be interesting and bring value to them. Because otherwise they're just going to flag you as spam, and you're going to get your accounts killed.
And how about the create and YouTube? Is it good strategy?
I don't know. I'm kind of playing with that right now. So I'm trying to. I've heard that if you understand how to do the short form videos, that those can be fairly good. So I'm kind of playing with that a little bit, just researching it and trying a couple things out, see how it goes. So
Yes, thank you.
yeah.
What kind of networking groups did you find are most valuable?
Where are you located, Shelley?
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay, so the best networking group that I was involved with was a group called Provisors, and I believe
Provisors?
Provisors, professional advisors. They have them all over California. Well, both in Southern and Northern California, and then they expanded. And I believe they do have groups groups in Atlanta now, but I'm not 100% sure. But what it is, so if you go to a BNI or LaTip or Leads Group or whatever, you have people that are sitting there trying to sell their services to you. And you have to bring them, you're expected to bring them leads or referrals at every weekly meeting, which, let's face it, that's not reality. And a lot of people end up giving poor leads to somebody, which means if you're getting poor leads, that means you're having to chase your tail, wasting time on stuff that's never going to pan out. So what I liked best about Provisors is the way it was set up is you're not there to sell your services to other people in the group. Their clients may be your clients. Your clients may be their clients. It's a collaborative, and it's more of how do we serve our clients in the best way. And so it's primarily comprised of the financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys. There are some business brokers or M&A advisors. There are some real estate people in the groups, typically very successful. And then you might have like CMOs and fractional CFOs, chief financial officer or controllers, controllers for hire type things. But really they're focused on dealing with businesses more in that kind of lower middle market. But other, other businesses as well.
It's spendy. It's
Provisors?
yeah, Provisors. I mean, on the AI it says $2,500 a year, and then there's one that says the San Francisco chapter is $1,800 a year. What do you pay?
When I left, so I was a member for 10 years, and then when I moved out to La Quinta from the Los Angeles area, they didn't have any chapters out here. So I didn't renew because I'm not going to drive an hour and a half to go to Ontario. I think that Ontario is like the closest chapter. And so I didn't renew, but I have a lot of good relationships from there. But I think the last time I renewed it was 2000 annually. So, but it's really one thing I can say about Provisors that I really liked it is, you meet other professionals, and first of all, the meetings are only once a month, so it's not this weekly thing where you're seeing the same 20 people every week. And then the other thing about it was that at the end of the meeting, you get assigned basically a troika. So there's 3 of you that will then get together for breakfast or lunch before the next meeting, before the next monthly meeting. And so that's where you really, when when that's scheduled and you sit down with somebody and you have that breakfast or lunch with them, and you learn more about their business, what they do, what their ideal client looks like, and they learn the same about yours. And one thing I can tell you that was great about Provisors is that if I was working, like I remember trying to sell a durable medical equipment business, and there were moratoriums on the Medi-Cal license, Medi-Cal billing numbers. They had a moratorium on that in that particular area. And so I reached out to one of the attorneys that specialized in Medicare and Medi-Cal, and just to ask him some questions about if there was any way to get around those moratoriums, if there was a way we could sell percentage of the business over time, how could we work this transaction? And he was fine. Picked up the phone, took my call because I said I was in Provisors with it, or I met him through Provisors. So he took my call, spent 15 minutes on the phone with me, didn't send me a bill. The people that you meet are just very collaborative. And that's really what Provisors is about collaboration and serving the clients. So it's a good organization. That's the best one networking wise that I've been involved with.